No problem. No.
Yeah. All right. So we were discussing about DMZs, right? So yeah, so there is like what will happen is companies they have this strategy of placing all their public facing servers and websites in a DMZ. Okay, so in if someone tries to attack the company's network through public network, okay, first of all they'll have to go through these firewall. If they are able to circumvent it, okay, then they'll be able to reach here. However, these are already public facing systems, okay, so the company won't be in much trouble. Their database and their all these confidential servers are secured behind another firewall. So and the 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 attacker will never know about it. That he might be thinking that this is all the company has. So that is the purpose of a DMZ. It provides double layer protection. Okay, so for it will help you secure your confidential databases and all behind a secure network, and it will have this thing the normal web servers and mail servers. Okay, yeah. Let's move forward. So these two slides, they are talking about how we approach, what is our approach to security, what is our approach to how we secure companies, how we secure companies networks. Okay, this used to be the earlier approach where they used to think about protocols and network infrastructure, user application and data. This was what they used to think about, and this is how they used to design their security controls. Now with the new challenges that have evolved in security, they have started thinking uh, like security measures according to these the network infrastructure policies and standards, process, rules. So this is how it is. Okay, don't need to know all that much. You can just read through these slides if you ever get a chance in life. Okay, but not needed entirely. Okay, okay. So what are the security challenges which a company faces currently? Okay, so this question that it might be asked in an interview, like they're like, tell us some security challenges which we face. Okay, so nowadays what is happening is many companies are allowing BYOD, bring your own devices. Okay, to so they won't be giving you uh, like company owned devices. They'll just reimburse the money. They'll be like, you buy yourself a laptop, I will give you the money, I'll reimburse you the money and use that laptop to conduct office business. Okay, now what happens in those cases when you get a personal laptop to conduct office business? That laptop won't have an AV, that won't have an endpoint security agent, it won't have a email protection agent, it won't have DLP controls in place. All those things won't, which makes a laptop endpoint secure, are not there in place. Okay, so BYOD remains a big challenge in the current security architecture scenario. Okay, that it's BYOD. Bring your own device. Just remember that. Okay. Okay, so what are the examples of shortcomings of current security architecture? It fails to secure internal assets from internal threats. Okay, so yeah, the sentence says it all. Okay, uh, it remains static and inflexible. Small deviations circumvent, undermine intended security. All users are equal no matter what device is used or if the user is a non-employee. Okay, so that is a concern. They need to have a different set of roles and like privileges for different users. Uh, uh, since it's not being implemented right now, that's a challenge. Security is weak for enterprise data. Access is not effectively controlled at the user level. That is another challenge. Okay. This is like all related to blah blah blah. This is all to do with why we need security, why we need what is the need of enterprise security, and yeah, to be like one fact. Okay, in these days, security is becoming so important. However, do any one of you have a slightest of idea how much a company is willing to spend on their security? Like most of the companies, even for AWS or like Google or Microsoft or say banking customers like JP Morgan, they hardly spend 2 to 3% of their entire operation budget in a year on security. Okay. And that is why like they won't spend it. They'll be like it's an overhead, we don't want that, we don't want, they are not willing to spend on the technologies and research needed to secure their network. However, whenever there is a incident which happens, they are made to pay millions and millions of dollars to the government or the client who has lost their data because of them. Okay, so that is what these slides are trying to say, the pros and cons of having a secure network, spending on security. So it's saying that if you better be safe than sorry. That is what these slides are trying to convey. Like be safe, spend considerable, at least like whatever is needed in your security architecture, just provide that. Don't think of money, don't cut budget on security technologies. So and we should spend it, because one day or the other, if your company has confidential data, it will be breached. Because there are like, if you see, okay, if you open any website like, right, JP Morgan, I'll show you a tool, okay, which my company has. All these sites per minute, at least 50 to 100 attackers are like trying to do something or the other with the site. They are trying to get into the site, okay, they're trying to get into that domain. See, 100 attackers per minute. That is the number, okay? And if some APT group gets hold of like something or anything, they'll exploit it endlessly and get confidential information of the client, right? And since it's a banking client, the data loss might be like huge, exponential amount, and we cannot like think how much loss they'll face because of that. So yeah, we do have tools to see that as well, like how many IPs are like trying to do a reconnaissance on those domain, or all those things can be checked. So that is how we do our business in cybersecurity. I'll show you guys on all those things, right? Hi, yeah, Ankita.
So, what's your role as a fresher in cybersecurity organizations?
Ah, okay, so there might be many things to do. Okay, like you might be asked to monitor the network. Okay, for you might be asked to do network forensics, or you might be put on the network operation, network security team, where you'll be monitoring the network of your client or your own company for violations, and checking if someone is like someone's end user is. You'll be doing all those things. Okay, you'll be applying security patches and all those helping people. Okay, so that is the pressure roles which you will get. Okay, and there are other roles as well, like you might support IT audits, security audits. All those things can be assigned given to a fresher. Don't need to worry.
Okay. And so they will be providing
Mhm.
an, training for that. No?
Yes, yes, obviously on the job training, and training is always provided to people. Don't worry. Yeah,
And
Kuldeep?
which laptop provides more security? Like, can you suggest me?
Mostly Mac.
Okay.
Okay, Windows laptop are not that secure.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, Kuldeep.
Is company provide further trainings,
Yes,
certificates,
yes, obviously.
certificates?
Okay. So let me tell you, whatever certifications I do currently, okay, everything FireEye is providing. Okay. It's like FireEye is reimbursing all the cost for these certifications. So they'll, well, depends on company, company to company. Most of these companies, okay, they, because it's their benefit that they invest on you. Okay.
Sir, why Mac is more secure than Windows,
Excuse
sir?
me, sir.
Like,
Okay. Who was that? Nagraj?
yes, sir.
Okay, Nagaraj, Mac is more secure because of the coding structure what they have. That like their the framework which it is built on, it's not very vulnerable, not very susceptible to attacks. Okay, it's not. I'm not saying it's not. It's foolproof, secure, but it's lesser when compared to Windows. Windows have like every day you'll see 0-day vulnerabilities in Windows. New vulnerabilities keep on coming up in Windows because it's so open. Windows framework is like it's so open that they're able to exploit it. It's not such with Mac. Okay, you can move ahead.
Sir, a
Excuse
tool,
me,
what
sir.
you said.
Sure, sir.
Uh, Suraj?
Sir, a tool, what you said, is it called Shodan? SHODA something?
Shodan is there, yes. Shodan is there. There are many actually, okay. Shodan is there, it's a good example. Okay, it's a reconnaissance tool which is used. Okay. And there are multiple tools which are used. We will cover that when we talk about penetration testing and offensive security. Okay. All these tools, like we'll be talking about TCP dump and Wireshark and this thing. What was that? We will be talking about all these tools. Don't worry about the who is, who, all those we'll be seeing. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good
Rohit?
Sir,
question.
is
Yeah, Rohit. Okay. Let's go.
Sir, have you completed your CISSP certification?
No, that is like I'll have to complete full 5 years, then I can.
Hello, sir.
Deploy it. So I have not yet. Like I still have a few months to complete 5 years industry experience. Okay, so that is the requirement to achieve that certification, and that's actually a very tough one. Okay, it's not like very tough. It's a lengthy one. It touches all the aspects of cybersecurity, only the surface, but not in depth. So, but yeah, I have a CISA, so that is also like somewhat similar, not as deep as CISSP, but yeah, it is there. Okay, let's go back. We don't have much time. This where did we reach? Okay, we'll be talking more on network security now. These all we'll be covering later. This is SQL injection attacks, which we'll be covering.
sir, is this PDS is different from what you sent?
Yes, it is different. It is different. I'll be sharing this to you. It's not completed, okay? That's why this is like cloud and enterprise security slides, which is like I have not shared yet because it's not yet ready. Right. Once it's ready, I'll be sharing this with you. Talking about zero trust cloud service provider. Okay.
Sir, for cloud source, for ISO certification 2001, is there experience required?
2007, 2001, not 2001, 27,001, 2019 is the latest one. Okay.
Yes.
You can get that certificate from either BSI, British Standards Institute, which is in Bangalore, or you can, it's also available online also. Okay. And there is PCOAB, there is one more which agency which provides that certification. So you can use either of them to get that. SQL injection. Just a second. Sorry, guys. Okay, all this will be covered. Don't worry. Okay, let's talk about risk analysis before reaching to before covering more technologies inside this thing, network security. So what is risk analysis?
Sir, it's
This
a forensic.
Sir,
Not forensics. Forensics is like doing things after an incident has taken place, right? That's the post post analysis, right? But this is pre-analysis. Okay, before an incident has happened, we will is the process of assessing the components of risk, threat, impact, and probability that it relates to an asset. Here, in our case, it's cybersecurity system. So risk analysis is what it's that we analyze our systems and our networks and our entire IT environments for threats, vulnerabilities, and whatever risks it is facing. It might have vulnerabilities that like some hacker might use to gain access to the system. So we do analysis to find those out, find out the weaknesses in our system, and what are the critical systems we have, how secure are those systems, what is the vulnerability which it has, all those things. Okay, that is risk analysis. This might be asked in your interview, what risk analysis is, how do you do it? So all those questions might be asked. Okay, to ascertain risk, the probability of impact to enterprise data must be calculated. So to find, to get the risk, if a risk is high, you need to know, you need to have that knowledge that how critical the data that you are storing is. If you are storing very critical data, client sensitive and very confidential data, then the risk of data breach will be severe, right? It will be high risk category. So that is what, like, we'll need to first categorize our data into high, medium, and low risk, low category, and then we can analyze what risks it might have. Okay, so this is the pyramid which we use. Okay, we assess the risk, we assess the probability of threats threats, and then assessing the impact. What will be the impact if a breach happens to that system? We conduct an impact analysis, then we assess the threats which are there in place. What all threats are there? Suppose China is a threat to US government agencies, right? So they keep on keep trying to access those systems, the US federal systems, to gain access and breach information and get some confidential information. So that's like, okay. So here this slide talks about assessing threats. We need to know what the threats are. We need to know who our enemies are. We need to know what their strengths are. Okay. So for that, we conduct threat analysis. Okay. And threat analysis can be conducted using various tools. Okay. There are tools and there are manual methods to do threat analysis. Okay. Yeah. Okay. What would motivate a person to attempt on authorized access to the data? It might be, the reason might be to steal the data. It might be destruction of data, just to be notorious, or hackers who are activists. Okay, that might also be an intention, or a retaliation when someone is fired or from the job, they want to get back to the employer by just stealing the data. That might also be a threat to them. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, this thing. Okay, just to this will make you think out loud. Okay, suppose the data is credit card number. Okay, the threat will be a hacker will be a threat to the credit card number. What will he do with the credit card numbers? He'll steal it. Okay, his motivation is theft. He'll steal the data and use it for financial gains, right? For cyber crimes. That is his motivation, to steal the credit card numbers, and the threat type is hacker. Suppose the threat type is competitors. Okay, what does a competitor want from you? If they are a threat, they'll want to steal your trade secret, your trading secrets, and like whatever your IP intellectual properties, they'll try to steal those from you. Okay, their motivation is competitive advantage. Okay, let's say a threat is disgruntled employee. Okay, they'll just steal your PII data of various like employees, and they'll try to like use that for nefarious intention, just to make someone embarrassed or something. They'll just try to do something. Okay, uh, if a accidental leak, okay, so suppose an employee has been assigned to client A, but instead of sending data to client A, he has sent it to client B. Okay, that's an accidental leak. So the data which is breached is company confidential data. And if the threat is natural disaster, it might be like client many BCP, and there might be loss to availability, all those things. Client list might be lost. Okay. Then we after assessing threat, we assess the impact of the this thing of the impact of the breach. So impact could be anything, like it could be denial of service, it could be loss of computer credit card data, reputation loss, countless dollars, and all those things can be impact. So we have to assess the impact too. So here also, if you see, we have used the same data. We have tried to get the impact rating. Okay, so if hacker steals credit card data, it's a critical impact thing. If a competitor gets trade secrets, the medium. I don't know why it is medium. It should be critical as well. PII, if PII is accessed, it's a high impact thing. Accidental leak, they say it's low. I don't know why, but it still should be high. If it depends on the data which is being sent. And probability, it's just maths. You know, what is the probability of an event occurring? Okay, probability is just like credit card number. You know what probability is, correct? So I don't need to explain this. And now let's talk about, yeah, there are two types of risk analysis basically. Okay, just learn this. Okay, I'm just will talk in 2 points, and just keep this in at back of your head and forget about this. Okay, quantitative and qualitative. Okay, so quantitative risk analysis is when we are looking at numbers, we are looking at the probability. Okay, we need time bound and quantity bound risk analysis. That is quantitative. Qualitative is we are just looking at judgmental factors on risk metrics and probability impact metric, all those things. That's qualitative. We look at the what do we call it? We are not looking at the quantitative factor, but we are looking at the qualitative factor, like just the what symbolic losses we can have. We are looking at those factors, reputation loss, and all those things come under qualitative losses. Qualitative risk analysis. Quantitative is if you look at the number of the loss and analysis. Okay. So qualitative risk analysis provide a perspective of risk in levels with levels such as critical, high, medium, and low. Okay. So just remember this. Quantitative is qualitative. Okay. Scenario for qualitative would be hacker attacks website to steal credit card number located in backend database. Threat is external hacker. Okay. Threat capability novice to pro. Okay, he can do anything, like it can be a pro. Logic will be SQL injection or all those things. Okay, script kiddie tools and which are available on the internet. Vulnerability is 85%. How do you current mitigation? Impact is high. It can be high, medium, or low. And so if you see qualitative risk analysis, okay, this is the risk which is analysis which is being done qualitatively, and this is the quantitative loss, like estimated loss and all those they are predicting. Okay, quantitative is in-depth assessment of what the monetary loss would be. Okay, if we have just like it is a high risk, they'll put a money value to it, how much we are expected to lose, all those things. So annual loss expectancy, you don't need to know this. Okay, just leave this, all this about money. When you get into a job, you will need to do this on your own. If you are analyst, okay, and you are put into this risk analyst job, okay, you will need to calculate this and come up with scenarios for companies, like how much you are expected to lose if you suffer this breach, how much you are expected to lose, what is the kind of uh, uh, what is the criticality of the threat, all those things you'll need to do. Okay. Now, where did this come from? Policy versus standard. We'll not discuss this now. We'll discuss it.
Sir, often the risk labels are known as P1, P2, right? P1, P2.
It depends on companies. Okay, it depends. It generally depends on company. Yeah, P1, P2 is most of the time it's related to incidents. Okay, so not this thing. It's mostly related to incidents. Okay, so risk is always categorized as high, medium, and low. And when incident is, it's P1, P2 is priority level. Okay, it's P1 is priority 1. If you want to, like, if there has been a incident and the priority level is 1, it means that it has to be solved within 24 business hours. If the priority level is 2, it has to be solved, it has to be remediated within so and so time frame. Okay, so it depends on companies how they define their priority index. Okay, so P1, P2 is that. Okay, mostly P1 is the standard term for priority.
Sir, I just have one doubt. Sir, what if a company gets hacked? Sir, how are the main responsibility will go on developers, right? Who will do coding? Because cybersecurity experts will not do any coding.
No, the responsibility will never fall on developers. Okay, their job is only to code. That's it. They are out of the picture. When it comes to security, the infosec team of a company is solely responsible for everything. Even if, like, so yeah, let's say your developers have made a product, okay, but they forgot to close all the they have left one backdoor open. Okay, they did not they did not implement secure coding practices. So there is something called secure coding practices. Okay, where when they are developing, when they are like typing codes, they need to make sure that they are following those check boxes like input validation methods and all those they are following. Okay, there's something called OWASP top 10 and all those. There are guidelines which they should follow while coding. If they do not follow the exact guidelines, and so the application which they have made, it might be vulnerable, right? However, the security of that application will fall on our the infosec teams. It would be their responsibility, and it won't be developers' responsibility. Okay, and you are talking about what if breach happens, the developers will be held responsible. No, it never happens like that. If a breach happens, okay, first, so okay, let's take this scenario. Can just quickly tell me, like, suppose my company which has 20 people, 20 laptops. Okay, suppose two of the company laptops which are being accessed has been hacked, okay, by ransomware, and their screens are getting this display that please pay 2 bitcoins in order to get your files released. This is scenario based question. Pakka will be asked in exam, like your interviews. So can someone unmute themselves and tell me what are the steps they need to take? The immediate steps to respond to that incident.
Sir,
Yeah,
first step would be disconnecting from the company's network.
correct.
Like all laptops are connected to the company network. We should
Yeah.
first of all disconnect the network so that the ransomware cannot affect the systems which are placed in the company or servers of the company.
Correct. Very good. Next step. That is only the first step. What will you do after that?
After that, we will shut down the like our laptop and find backups of our files if they are present.
It will come later. Okay. First, you will need to make sure that that laptop which has been affected has been isolated from the network. Okay, from your general network, from the company network. Once isolation is done, like if all the connections to the company's network is removed, okay, preserve the evidence, like don't touch, don't do anything on that laptop, just keep it like that. Now you have to make sure that other computers are not as well affected, okay? Of the other company computers are not affected as well. So you will run a scan on your other computer's laptop as well. Okay, so first you need to make sure that all the only like all the other computers are sick. Like make sure that we have isolated the affected system. Okay, once that is done, then you'll call your incident response team, that so and so has happened though. So every company has an incident response team. Cybersecurity professionals or infosec team is that they will be part of that. It's called a CERT, okay, incident response team, CERT, okay. So they are the first responders when there is a breach or any security incident that happens. So you'll need to call them, and then they'll take it on from there. They'll do their, so there are 7 steps involved in incident management as well. We'll cover that. Like, first they'll see the what needs to be collected. Then all those things are done. We'll discuss. There are 7 steps for that. Okay. So just remember that this question might be asked: what if there is a breach which has happened, and what will you do? How will you respond to it? What are your first action? What you should do immediately? So remember that you first need to isolate the computer from the network. Okay. Okay. Does anyone know what is the difference between policy and standard?
Sir, policy is like which are implemented so that employees or a company should be like running on the previously set policies, like what should
It's
be like security measures should be like they will be placed in the company or implemented, like.
Okay, you are beating around the bush, but don't worry.
It's
I
like
know
set of
what.
rules, no, sir.
It's not rules. Okay, it's not rules. Policy
Sir,
is. Right.
Rahul, like a policy is like what a company states it should follow, and the standard is like
Yeah.
what a government needs to do in order for the effective data and all to be secured, and also the communication between the organizations. So standard is like a certification that a company needs to get from its own policies that are designed.
Okay. So I think you are 70% right. Okay. So policy is the principles of your organization which you follow with respect to various things. Okay. So the most important policy for a cybersecurity professional is the IT security policy. Okay. So that will be the defining framework how you manage your cybersecurity how you manage security in your company. That's a policy. It will be principles based, like it will give you a overall guideline on how you do things in your company. Okay, standards are procedures on how you implement those principles. So whatever a policy talks about, a standard implements that. Okay. So okay, so you can see the terminologies here as well. Standards focus on configuration and implementation based on what is outlined in policy. So whatever and what is a policy? A policy is a set of principles on things which you do in your organization. So a set of principle to guide your security. Okay, it will have, this will be called information security policy. Okay, and what will be an information security standard? So whatever the policy talks about, you have standards and configuration and implementation to implement that. So that will be standard. Okay. So these are the policies which we generally have. Like this will surely be there in all the companies. People who are working, you can try to find out your company's acceptable use policy, technology use policy, remote access policy, data classification policy, data handling, data retention, data restriction. There should be a few more like IT security, business continuity management, logical access management, and network security policy as well. Those three are not the given, but yeah, this pretty much these things should always be there when a company is designing their security framework. So anyone knows anything about acceptable use policy? Rest, I think, are all self-explanatory, but acceptable use, anyone? No one? Okay. If a company provides you their laptop, okay, so suppose they are giving you a laptop, the acceptable use policy will guide, will have the standards on what you can do and what you cannot do and what the company can do with that laptop. Okay, so as part of acceptable use policy, okay, the company will always say that whatever you are doing on the laptop, it's being monitored. Okay, so all company laptops are always monitored for whatever you are doing, okay, on there. Okay, if you are transferring stuff to from your company email to personal, it will all be monitored. Everything is whatever websites you're opening in your browser, it's being monitored by your company, and your company asks you permission for that. They'll tell you that they are doing that when you, and they'll make you sign an acceptable use policy. They are telling you that we'll be monitoring your computer because we are providing you to conduct office business, and it should not be used for personal things or something like that. That's acceptable use policy. They can be, that can be related to use of devices, mobile devices which they are providing, or how you can use social media to publish a company's this thing, how you can like do things on social media. Can you publish companies achievements and all those on social media or not? Can you disclose things on social media? All that will be covered in this thing, acceptable use policy. So yeah.
Sir, are those monitored using Azure Sentinel and Splunk something?
No, so Splunk is a very basic tool. I'd say not a Splunk, okay? But all these companies know they'll have the endpoint agents, they call it, okay? Like endpoint agents are provided by many companies. FireEye also has an endpoint agent. We call it HX. So every like all these big companies, CrowdStrike or like all the big yeah, they have endpoint agents which are installed in all the computers. Okay, they'll keep on monitoring your day-to-day functioning and work, whatever you are doing. If you are transmitting to something to USB or something, it will automatically be blocked using that, and they'll also keep logs of your like whatever you are doing on the computer.
So logs are only captured when the PC goes online, right? If it is
Online,
offline, then it don't get captured, I guess.
No. So that's so since the endpoint agent is installed in the computer, and okay, you cannot remove that. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you are doing things online or offline. Okay, it will capture everything. So
what
yeah,
is Splunk?
Splunk is a SIEM tool. Okay, we'll discuss on that. It's like network monitoring, monitors everything on your network, whatever your like whatever activity is happening on a company's environment. It will monitor and provide alerts based on the signatures and activities which are happening. Okay, and nowadays like it's like being integrated with all this machine learning and artificial intelligence, like behavior based and heuristic analysis and behavior based tools. All those are coming up like because of new technologies. This is being enhanced to a like a whole new degree. Like even before there is a incident, looking at the patterns, they'll just generate an alert. They'll be like, this user is looking suspicious, this traffic is looking malicious. they'll know all that. That it's all done using SIM tools. Okay.
Okay,
So
sir.
yeah, so okay, yeah, so yeah, older tools, they would only log in things, log details about things when you go online. However, there are tools, okay, and I have seen this in action as well. They log all the activities what you're doing. So you don't you should not be under assumption that they are not logging things when you're offline using the PC offline. So that does, if they are not doing that, how will they be sure that suppose you have some Word documents which are very confidential to your company, okay? Suppose you are not connected to the network, and you know that it won't be logged if you are not connected to the network. Then you will definitely, like, without logging, you will copy it in USB, or you will just try to use some, you will connect to your this thing and send the file somewhere else, right? So all those are monitored. You don't need to like be online only.
Sir, and what about physical documents? Like
Physical
bonds and all?
documents. So mostly, okay, physical documents, nowadays it's very relevant to talk about physical documents. Nothing like, most of the time, whatever physical documents you have, if you are in the office space, they'll ask you to shred it, okay? They'll have shredders. You'll ask to be shredded, like all those documents should be kept confidential. If there is no use of it, it should be shredded. However, I don't think anyone is using this thing, physical documents these days. We'll talk about this data destruction in the data destruction section. Okay, we'll be talking about how they shred the magnetic tapes and how data is deleted after there is no use of it. So that is also confident, because at times you would have seen there are attacks when people they'll suppose they break the CD, okay? However, you know that that data can still be retrieved. If you are just normal doing cleaning of, suppose you don't need a hard drive, you do normal, you just delete all the data and you throw the hard drive. That data can still be brought back. That data can definitely be brought back using technologies. So then we need to make sure that when we are disposing hard drive, first the hard drive is like shredded using industrial methods. Then there is a full like disk wipe to be done twice or thrice. It has to be done before it's actually it's actually disposed completely. So they make sure that the hard drive is cleaned 2 times, 3 times, and then they also destroy it physically, so that they don't want to take any chances with the data which they have on the systems. Like suppose some companies developing high tech, which they don't want to fall in competitors' hand, they'll do all those things. Like they'll make sure that they have data loss prevention controls on their employees' laptops. They'll make sure that whatever data they are generating stays within the company. And for that, they have ODC environment as well. Okay, so it's a clean environment where you're not supposed to take your phones or personal devices or any recording. You're just supposed to come in without your phones. You need to work there and go back. That the network, the computers which they have in that room, the environment, the clean environment, what they call it, it cannot be accessed from outside that room. So that secure that is. So when you have government clients or like all those things, they'll ask you to work in ODCs. I think you'd have heard like ODC environment. We debated a lot from the topic, and we are up with the time as well. So
Could you just show that tool, sir? You were saying about that tool. Just show some example.
I'm using my personal laptop now. Okay, I'll get a screenshot and show it to you in the next class.
Sure.
This is my personal laptop, not my office laptop. I cannot show it to you here. Okay.
Sir, in some companies there will be some SSO login. There will be
Yes,
two
yes.
types. What is that? SSO?
It's definitely like every company will have SSO login, okay? And it should be there in place. So I think we discussed that in the access management. Okay, so there are tools like, okay, all companies, okay, you will need to access many applications, correct? Like uh, whenever you will have your HR application, you will have your leave management system, you will have your learning portal, you will have your tools where you conduct business, you will have Teams, Outlook, and all those things, right? Correct. And like on an average, 20 applications will be there, and all applications will need username, password, and multi-factor authentication. And that's the problem, right? You cannot go on like putting username and password and MFA like every time you want to log in into some application. So what the concept here is a single sign-on concept. Okay, so there are tools like there are softwares like Okta. Okay, so what they do is there are a single sign-on provider. Okay, and they are identity management provider as well. Okay, so what I'll tell you how Okta works. I have my company also uses Okta. Okay, so just a second. Yes, so on Okta. So what will happen is you will just need to log in into Okta. Okay, so you will only need to log in into Okta single time. Like you will use your password and your the multi-factor authentication code which is there on your phone. Once you log in into Okta, okay, you'll get all your applications on that. There will be a dashboard. You will get all your applications. Suppose you see Slack, Workday, Confluence, all are there. Okay, now these are your applications. If you need to access them, you just need to click one click, and you won't need to you enter your password again or your multi-factor authentication. So this is the concept of single sign-on. Okay, like you're just logging into this Okta platform, and Okta has integrated there. It is providing single sign-on. So this is the principle of trust which comes in play. So now this Zendesk app will be like, I trust you. They'll say this to Okta that I trust you since you have verified this user. We trust you, and we are also assuming that it's verified, and we'll let them log in. Okay.
So, but
That is
single login is completely like risky, right? What if
uh,
this access is given to some hacker? He will be accessible to all the websites what the
no,
company
so it
wants.
is, actually, it can be risky. However, that is the most trusted, like, security and convenience never go hand in hand. You know that, right? So that is the concept here. We do this for convenience, single sign-on. However, it cannot be 100% sure too. So yeah, wherever there is a convenience issue of convenience, security will come into play, because to whenever you want to secure things, you will have to take the harder way. You will have to like make things difficult for people, and that will leave inconvenience. That will create inconvenience to everyone, right? So that is the thing. So why are we doing a multi-factor authentication? That is also inconvenient, right? However, it's not secure to not have multi-factor authentication. Passwords can be cracked very easily nowadays, and that's why, yeah, security and convenience don't go hand in hand. But at times, convenience is also need of the hour. It's very much required, and I believe single sign-on solves like that purpose.
So, does mobile phones are also collect the logs and all? Like, how does the PC collects the logs? In the same way, does mobile also do? Mobile.
I don't think so. No. So not many mobile endpoint agents are in place. Okay. Companies will have this thing, container containerization software. Okay. So if they are letting you access Outlook or Teams on your mobile device, they'll have something called Intune, or they'll have something called Microsoft this thing Intune, or some mobile device management software like Iron Mountain, or yeah. So all this software will be installed in your phone also. Okay, so that software will monitor those applications, the data which is flowing in those applications. That's called a container software.
Thank
Rahul,
you.
is there anything like in Gmail, like we can send a mail and can delete it after someone writes or opens it?
In Gmail, I don't know. So you're talking about this thing which Telegram and all those things have, it will be destroyed after it's read, right? I'm not sure. I'm not
Yeah, it's
sure.
similar like that, but in
Yeah.
Gmail, suppose we send some confidential data,
Mhm.
so they can have just one look, or if we send somewhere our documents online for print or something,
Mhm.
so
I'm
later
not
on
sure.
they keep the copies, right? So can they delete it automatically like that?
I'm not sure. And one more fun point, okay? Not many people use Gmail to communicate confidential stuff. Companies will never use Gmail to communicate in confidential stuff, okay?
Outlook, right? They use. I mean,
Most
the
of the
company
people,
is G Suite
not
Tools or
even Outlook,
Microsoft
okay?
Office.
If the data is very confidential, they'll not even use Outlook. They'll use some secure file sharing sites like Kiteworks, Aselion, or Box, or stuff like that. So those sites are used. Those sites and file sharing servers are used. They are very secure. Mimecast, stuff like that are used. Yeah. Okay, all right. I think we have short past our time for today, 11:15. Can we close it today? For today?
Excuse me, Rahul.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to just ask, have you cross-examined the bugs which I have told you?
No, Rohit, no. So I have a lot of work these days, okay? Because this
Okay,
is
okay.
quarter closing, so I think we're having to close some things. So I'll do it after first, like after next class, after tomorrow's class, I'll have lots of free time. I'll do it. Don't worry.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I have
Thank you.
shared the screenshots with you.
Oh yeah, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sir, please
Thank
share
you.
the PDF, sir.
Please share the PDF.
PDF, yes, sir, we have this
Yes,
file.
I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that. Okay, don't worry. I'll share the PDF and the lectures also.
Okay, sir, thank you.
All right. Anything else, guys? You're comfortable attending class tomorrow evening, same time? Same time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Fine.
sir.
All right.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night.
Good night.